Great. Uh, Let me first introduce the panelists, and I'll not take much time, but it's a very interesting panel of 7, excluding myself. And I recognize that there are two entrepreneurs, Bangladeshi side. There are two experts from the policy side, Dr. Mustafa Abid Khan, who I qualify as the lone trade and surviving trade negotiator. You survive, possibly. Professor Mustafizur Rahman requires a very little introduction. He is more, I would say, sir, more of a public figure, who is a distinguished senior research fellow from the Center for Policy Dialogue. But then we have from the partner side, we're from the Danish embassy, a colleague, and also from the EC delegation. But on the entrepreneur side, meaning on the other side of the demand supply side, we have Mr. From the Shinshin group, Mr. Sadat, and also Mr. Sharia Chaudhary from another group, and then from another spectrum, Ziaur Rahman, who is from the H&M. So they come, may I say, more of a noodle ball, where sometimes relations are linear, sometimes non-linear, sometimes they may have difficult conversations, a bit acrimonious, but I think that's part of the nature. Be that as it be, why we are here. I think there are two things as we may look at the title. Obviously, we are to prospect into future. And what future? I think going forward to LDC transition, which is 2029, we are 5 years away from that, I would say less. And then GSP Plus. GSP Plus, something that it's different. We thought we were quite, for some time looking at the US GSP, but here principally, I think it will be European Union. And if I'm not wrong, I think we are 50% plus on the European market in terms of our products. I would not go into specific because sometimes I myself am confused about whether it's 55 or 60, whatever. And in doing that, while you may have seen the paper, I would summarize, sir, for all of you in terms of, I think this would be more of a 90-minute conversation. So the questions as I kind of come to you, please do not think this is more of a monologue. Let us truly try to make it interactive, but feel free, feel liberated to speak up your mind, not in terms of should, would, or could. And this, I think, Mustafiz, if I'm not wrong, you're also putting on social platform live so that large audience is listening. We also, courtesy the Pratham Alo, Shubhankar is here. I think we'll be reaching far greater crowd. So please think liberated in terms of whatever you may say or think. And please do not feel inhibited by whatever position or space where you're coming from. 4 things, if I may bring before you. One is that the space of existing and emerging norms, standards, practices. Where and how do we make ourselves ready? Government, public space, or the entrepreneurs. That is one. Risks. Risks is not something static. Risks are continuing. So today, the way I manage the risks, tomorrow it will be different. How, as an entrepreneur or as a industry, we kind of continuously we try to adjust to risks, and then come to safeguard clauses. Avid bhai, I think the third would be then concomitant to the risks and this standards, practices, norms is how do we coordinate our actions, measures. And then 29 would be a completely different world for Bangladesh. And possibly then strategization. How do we strategize? We have also the partners, European Union or maybe Denmark. How, from the other side of the spectrum, how would you think that Bangladesh should strategize? How, as the other end of the spectrum, you think that looking at your consumers, your advocacy groups and others, what is their expectation? Consumers particularly under, not simply the brands. I think that would be the call. So without further ado, this is how I would think that we need to look at the whole thing more on a little easily understandable construct. So let me start with Dr. Mustafa Abid Khan. And your job essentially would be, sir, to fire up. Please do not speak the way you normally speak. I know you mind. And I think in the first spread, if you take 4 to 5 minutes in terms of responding, and then we can engage in conversation also. We face multi-layered challenges. It's not one kind of. And as a negotiator, and how would you describe, particularly for our entrepreneurs, the global trade dynamics. And secondly, a little uncomfortable question. Sir, I'm also looking at you. Our entrepreneurs, sometimes people complain, they continuously ask for fiscal incentives. I said uncomfortable. And 3 decades on, there are questions whether how long do we sustain them? Beyond 29, what could be the landscape? Sir, over to you.
So thank you very much for the question. Actually, that you see that Bangladesh is actually set to graduate in November 2026. So what will happen then? As per actually the WTO rule, we will not get any preference after 2026. But there are, that also some hope that European Union, then Canada and UK will give us, 3-year extension for the duty-free quota-free access. So until 2029, we'll get the duty-free access in these 3 markets. We estimated that we see that around 73% of our total export actually enjoy duty-free quota-free access in our major market. And Canada, European Union and UK actually constitute 61%. So 61% would be granted until till 2029. So interestingly, these 3 countries have another scheme that is we call GSP plus. It is for UK GSP plus. For UK it is enhanced preference, and for Canada it is GPT plus. So, but there are some conditions. Let me explain, what is happening. That actually the European Union GSP scheme was supposed to end at in 2024, and they proposed some changes. The problem was with Bangladesh was that they had a vulnerable criteria that first 7 sector must constitute major portion or 75% of their total export. That Bangladesh qualify. That actually that only garment sector actually constitute more than 75%, one sector. So that is not a problem for Bangladesh, but there is one problem that import from Bangladesh into European Union should not exceed 9.2% in order to qualify for GSP plus. So what happened? European Union actually considered that one. That you see that for European Union, and you can say from the European Union that success story of GSP of European Union is Bangladesh. Bangladesh actually benefited from GSP in European Union, and major portion of export from GSP beneficiary country is from Bangladesh. So that's why the European Union was very much interested to actually continue access or GSP plus access to Bangladesh, and that's why they proposed to withdraw the import share
Abid Bhai,
content.
Abid Bhai, if I may ask you, sorry for interjection, tell us that 2005 onwards, it's been 20 years that we are referring to RAGI guidelines. Now it's due diligence.
Yeah, that will happen.
Can you please tell that what does it mean for an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So you see that, that's why I'm saying that, that the problem is that, GSP, in order to, actually I was thinking first how to get GSP plus benefit. There are some, convention, human rights convention, then labor rights convention, then, convention on environmental issues and governance. So we have to comply, ratify, and then actually implement those conventions, and that is the requirement. And Bangladesh actually ratify most of the convention, but the major challenge in front of Bangladesh will be the effective implementation of this one. So that is the one issue Bangladesh have to address in near future. And you see that it's not only that for the GSP plus in European Union there is a due diligence order which was effective from 23rd, let me tell you, it was effective from 25th July 2024. So here they are saying that, that all companies and in European Union, they will maintain due diligence in terms of the human rights and environmental impact of their business inside Europe and outside Europe. So it covers all supply chain they involve in their business process. So that is an important issue, and Bangladeshi actually factory and exporter has to comply with that due diligence impact. And then we have the recently, actually, you heard about it in Europe, the US Memorandum on Advancing Worker Empowerment, Rights and High Labor Standard globally. That was promulgated in US on 23rd November 2023. So 23rd November 2023. So they say that every their agency will actually monitor how the labor standards are actually actually maintained by these countries. And if the countries fail to maintain labor standards, the US can impose any trade sanction or in any other financial sanction or any sanction in other forms. So these two actually act or memorandum will be a big challenge in future for Bangladesh. And then I want to say that about it. You see that we always look for preference, all that. But we need to actually increase our competitiveness. That is very important. Very important. And then you see that we are excessively reliant on even garment sector. I actually estimated that 51% of cash incentive in 2022-23 actually was given to garment sector. And garment sector is actually flourishing in Bangladesh. And I remember, that when the government actually started to reduce gradually the cash incentive, there was a actually hue and cry. But my question to this, our exporter, so you remember the 1% cash incentive was given due to the fact that Bangladesh, the government could not actually depreciate the taka. And that's why it was given. But when the Bangladeshi taka was depreciated already around 50%. So there is no need for 1% subsidy.
Okay.
And then you see that, let me actually go for the next question. So we have to withdraw all cash incentive and tax exemption. Now, what are the ways to actually mitigate the losses? That I think that there are other options to provide support to exporters, to domestic industry. There are many ways that we can provide support. The production link support, then labor compliance support, environmental compliance support. All this support can help our exporter, our industry to flourish. That's
okay.
Possible.
I will come back again to you. One thing I can share with every one of you, as we speak right here, right now, in one part of the town in Dhaka, there is a very significant discussion which has begun for every one of us present in the room. This is with European Union on the Partnership Cooperation Agreement, PCA. And that, I think, I look at you when you come, if you kindly reflect on that. What does it mean? What should it mean for for an exporter, for the policy space, and eventually? I'll not elaborate on that, but on that note, let me come to Mr. Sohail Sadat from the Chin Chin Group, an entrepreneur. Two things. We hear of buyer confidence. Now, what do you think in the changed landscape today or 29 or beyond? How can you engage or sustain the buyer confidence of your buyers, let's say, particularly when we transit, if we are to go into the European market with GSP Plus? Because let's get it right, it will not be simply labor. It will be about human rights, about larger political space, something maybe beyond your control as well. And the other is that the sustainable manufacturing practice is it's on a roll. It's continuously evolving. And that would ask that you also look continuously. It's not simply about looking at your balance sheet. How are you adjusting, if you kindly reflect?
Thank you very much for having me here. First of all, just I would like to take the opportunity to say about the incentive. We talk about a lot incentive. That today sitting in this situation, there is inflation, exchange rate gain, and then we earn difference. But those are eaten up already by electricity upcharge, the gas utility bill upcharge,
So
and many
we
things.
will come back to that.
So
during
that's
this
one
afternoon. But
important
if you
to
kindly-
address.
yeah.
Okay. And coming back to this specific point, GSP Plus and LDC graduation, I would like to address this LDC graduation by 2029. If I think my personal opinion is we should revisit at it, that either we qualify for the LDC graduation or not. That is very important, all the data parameters. Because if we do even, can we sustain that? That is a big question I supposed to put in front of everyone. And coming back to the GSP Plus and buyers' confidence, yes, of course, like the political stability is very important for customers. They always want to see that it is sustainable and it is like consistent. This is a big concern from us that we have to address. We should look at it to bring the buyers' confidence back. And coming back to the GSP Plus, we heard about like EU double D and EU triple D legislations. These are all the big talks. And on the labor condition improvement, we have big scope. We have to really address this. We have to educate our team and how we bring it to the next level, like US is talking about 2023. We have always as an entrepreneur fear that if we go for the trade union, how it is going to function. Is that going to function properly? Are they going to address? So far, if I am not wrong, I saw Mr. Zia said about it rightly. If there is any issue, if there is any concern, we can talk, we can sit down. But going out and do something, act differently, or do some anarchy is not going to give us a solution. Rather, giving buyers wrong message, the rest of the world wrong message. But I think we collectively, between all the stakeholders, this labor condition improvement is very important. We have to build up our image. We have to educate entrepreneurs, as well as we have to educate the workers, like what should be done from their part, what should be done from the do's and don'ts should be very clear. So this is number one. And coming back to the EU double D registration and EU triple D legislation is considering labor and considering sustainability on social and environment sustainability. So on the social sustainability, I think we are more or less, we understand and we are practicing Bangladesh, but we have to showcase those, what we are doing. Rest of the world should know about it. We are like progressing a lot, but maybe rest of the people don't know. In our company particularly, if we say we are trying to send updates to the customers, we are coming to these kind of seminars, we are telling everyone to know what we are doing in terms of social sustainability, ethical practices, and of course environment sustainability. We are investing a lot. Recently, we are working with Danish government and company called Bestseller, like they are planning, like funding us to bring the next level, like especially rooftop solar panel, power plant, like water treatment plant, or even using those green machineries. So these are, we can address. Of course, we have to work very closely with the customer, brands, and all the stakeholders to bring their confidence back. I think that will help us greatly. That is my suggestion, but we have to work very closely. I must say all the stakeholders, the government, the entrepreneurs, the labor union, and of course, what about the NGO or the foreign delegates, we have to really go into the detail. We need training program. We have to address on the point so that we bring the solution. As an entrepreneur, we are really delighted to address those, and we are intended to address those and solve those. But we have to do it together. Thank you very much.
Any example you'll cite about sustainable manufacturing practice? One example from your point of view.
Like in terms of sustainability, if we talk about social
sustainable manufacturing practice.
Sustainable manufacturing practice, what we have is like example. If we talk about for the workers from some point of view, we are giving them like sanitary napkin. So this is one thing. Then we are taking care of their health. Then we are taking care of their children education.
Okay.
So responsible practices are there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Edwin. Edwin is the team leader for Green Inclusive Development in the EC delegation, European Commission delegation in Bangladesh. Two things, I think by now you've heard. So in terms of Bangladeshi manufacturers or entrepreneurs to move towards sustainability, and for them to attain the standards, how from the European Union side you can help, if you cite some practical examples. And the other would be that for them to attain the sustainability requirements for the GSP plus eligibility, what could be the one or two suggestions that you may offer at this point of time?
Okay, thank you. So thank you for having us here. Can you hear me properly? Yes. So first of all, you also asked about the partnership cooperation agreement negotiations, which is indeed ongoing at this moment. I'm not part of those negotiations, so I leave it to the ones that are inside that room to comment on it. But just in general, to say that indeed Europe is the biggest market. In 5 years, we will need to have a new kind of trade arrangement between Europe and Bangladesh. And for us, it will be extremely important that in Bangladesh there is progress on labor rights and on environmental standards. But we want to help support Bangladesh in meeting those labor rights and environmental standards. We are really on the side of Bangladesh. We are on the side also of the reform ambitions of your interim government. In the area of sustainability, that's indeed where I know a little bit more about, although I also have speaking points on labor rights, but I think my Danish colleague can say more about that. In the area of sustainability, there indeed this famous due diligence directive is a key element of our EU legislation. As you explained, it will oblige the buyers in Europe, the larger buyers, I think with more than companies with more than 450 million, how do you call it? Return, or I don't know. They or with more than 1,000 employees, they are obliged to not only report on their own compliance with labor rights and
voluntary. Are you referring to voluntary?
The term is voluntary.
No, so
You were talking about sustainability reporting and sustainability.
Yes. No, so I'm talking the due diligence directive requires the European buyers to meet labor rights and environmental standards, and they need to ensure that also their supply chain, as you rightly explained, meets these standards. And I think Bangladesh is doing a lot on meeting labor rights and also on environmental standards. As EU, we are supporting inter alia through the so-called SREUP projects, the safety retrofitting and environmental upgrading project, under which we provide, together with AFD. AFD provides a loan and we provide a grant. We help factories with effluent treatment plants, with energy efficiency measures, and also with rooftop solar. So the Bangladeshi sector is doing a lot in those areas. Where I see a problem and where I see an area where more attention is needed is the area of decarbonization. So under this due diligence directive, the buyers are also obliged to come up with a climate transition plan. And so they are now looking at their suppliers on how well they are doing with their decarbonization trajectory. And there they are comparing what Bangladesh is doing with what is happening in India, Vietnam, Indonesia, China, Cambodia. And in those other countries, the sector is electrifying more quickly than here, so they are linked to the grid. And the share of renewable energy in the grid is increasing more rapidly than here. So that's one of the areas I would mention, as if you ask me where to focus on. The decarbonization of the sector here in Bangladesh would be a priority.
But Edwin, I would pose a question, no need to answer now. When we talk of decarbonization or moving towards net zero, one of the challenges, I think that is to me, first two challenges would be technology or innovative solutions. There is so much in Europe, but there's a mismatch. Mismatch is that if you ask that how these are to flow to the demand side, I'm sorry, supply side, the manufacturers, that's not happening automatically. There are a number of reasons. I think just hold on. I mean, when we move on to the floor, if you kindly reflect on that, because that I think could be a major missing puzzle. We are looking at 2050 target. Bangladesh is graduating 29, but in the meantime, there is a lot of expectation that Bangladesh will be able to catch up. But I think that's a formidable challenge that you talk about. Well, just hang on for that moment and we'll come back again. Thank you, Edmund. Let's now turn to another entrepreneur, Mr. Shah Rai Chaudhary. He's from Evans Group, he's a director. Two questions to you. One is that in your view, how are you strategizing or thinking of offsetting or meeting the potential loss in terms of trade benefits? Or rather to put it, how do you plan to stay competitive? People think it's just 4 or 5 years is just down the line. And secondly, I think you've heard and it's known the production or compliance standards, to put it simply. How are you coping up, and by 29, when your trade, the duty benefit will shrink further, and in the meantime, the other layer would be coming up, how kind of you're looking or thinking of, if you kindly reflect.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. So, to address your first question, in fact, I really thought about this before coming here. And in fact, I prepared a list of things as well. I mean, the question was, how do we prepare for loss of LDC benefits? So when I was preparing my answers, so I was thinking about answers like, go for automation, and then make less mistakes, and then sourcing of materials and so on. But in fact, one of the key things that finally I thought about was in terms of thinking about answers, we go so much into complications that we forget the basics. And in this regard, I feel going back to the basics of our business, our trade, I think that is the most important. Basics in terms of relationship with our buyers. Sometimes we focus so much on the external, we forget about the internal. If we want to keep the business, whatever the challenges are coming up ahead, one of the things that I learned, in fact, from London Business School last year, was if the person who's in control of the relationship is in control of the business. So being in touch with our buyers, actively improve on our communication, improve, of course, in our source of raw material, collection, development. These are some of the things that down the line we all tend to, in fact, forget. Automation, these things, it is bound. If you are to remain competitive, if you want to remain in line, you have to. Events, of course, we are investing a lot. My elder brother is here. Actually, he's looking after the production side. We are two brothers. I'm looking after the marketing side. We are tremendously investing in terms of automation. However, the man behind the machine is more important. So training facilities, that is even more important. That's why we are investing a lot on building our team. Previously, we used to focus a lot on Sri Lankan and other people, but we are trying to develop in-house people in Bangladesh, even trying to get support from technicians from China and other places. China I mentioned because we're the master franchise of Miniso in Bangladesh. We have a big, good relationship with people there. So we're trying to actually think about automation and technical know-how in a different manner to remain competitive in the long run. Coming to your question about compliance. In fact, compliance is not, it is a prerequisite. It is a very underwhelming discussion coming to end of 2024, we're moving into 2025. It is a prerequisite, it is a mandatory mindset. If you do not have that mindset of being compliant, what do I need to remain compliant? I think that is not the way it should be. Rather than, what is more worrying, I think it is about the SMEs and other small business stakeholders, because even for group of companies like us who are in the business, we are the second generation now. Our father, actually, he started the business back in 1983. So we were bred differently, inbuilt different. This is a legacy business. You have to keep moving forward, remain compliant, etc. But people who are SMEs, small business holders, especially for GSP Plus, when the compliant requirements will be standardized for everyone, that will actually be a challenge. However, I think the media also has a big role to play here, portraying, as I think Sohail Sadat Bhai was also mentioning, the way we are being portrayed to the world, that is extremely important. Even you might be or you may not be surprised to know that small factories who are not fully even compliant in countries like our competitor countries, even in India or others, they're producing for high-end brands. But the media, the way they're not negatively portraying that, I think that also has a big impact on positively encouraging the economy and even encouraging the small businesses. Lastly, I want to say, regarding this point, even though we have our newest platinum certified factory, alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful factory. We believe buyers are really impressed. So I had this personal experience when buyers are coming, usually every time I'm attending them, doing the tour and everything. So at the end of the tour, she was sitting and having some snacks with me. And then she was saying, wow, what a beautiful factory. 30 lines, you've done it, fully compliant, sustainable, everything is good. But I'm doing a lot of orders in Myanmar, and she's laughing. I'm doing a lot of orders in Myanmar, and there are no fire doors even in those factories. So, at the end of the day, is it only about price? Is it only, what are the factors? I think we should all really think about going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you actually tickle a number of elephants. One being not only getting the basics right, but I think there's a dichotomy as well towards the very end, which you said. Very interesting. I think we can come back later. Let me turn to one of the partners from the Danish embassy, Ole Hustesen. He is the sectoral counselor for occupational safety and health. Specific two things as more of an illustration as a partner with the Bangladeshi manufacturing, I would say, not only apparel. How do you think that you can meaningfully, impactfully support the Bangladeshi entrepreneurs for them to get ready, for them to embrace the fear of compliance? I think if I borrow the sense of you from Mr. Raid, so that it doesn't become more of a worry, but it becomes more something to gain, as a mutually gainful thing. And secondly, the whole thing coming from the responsible business conduct. I have some problems with that from the OECD many guidelines as well. But I think how can we really make responsible business practices work at the supply side for the Bangladeshi entrepreneurs?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the word. I think, first of all, I would like to highlight that one of the reasons Denmark is here today in this panel is that we really have a shared interest in a smooth graduation for Bangladesh. 1.5 billion Danish or US dollars is imported into Denmark every year. That's the highest per capita in the EU. Now, if I go to your question, how can we support, work together? I would rather phrase it. I would focus on 3 areas. The first one being labor rights, labor law. The second one being labor inspection. and the third one being investments in sustainable supply chains. If we look at the first one, labor laws, Denmark is and has been working quite a long time with Bangladesh, both the government, the buyers and the suppliers, to see how we can align the Bangladeshi labor law with international standards, and we support through the ILO, and I see ILO Better Work is also here today, with more than 100 million Danish kroner. If we look at labor inspections, we have been working together with the Bangladeshi Labor Inspectorate since 2016 to improve the inspection of factories. And I would say that labor inspection is absolutely crucial in terms of improving the working conditions at factories. They can help address risks. You mentioned risks in the beginning. By identifying the risks and involving both the owners and the workers in finding solutions and addressing those risks. Finally, investments in supply chains. We have been talking about investments in the production process when we talk about sustainability, but we also have to talk about investments in the whole infrastructure. And I am a bit proud to say that some of the biggest foreign direct investment projects in Bangladesh are Danish. We are investing in a green harbor, and we are investing in renewable wind energy park outside Cox's Bazar. And those things are needed also to ensure an integrated and sustainable supply chain. It's not only what happens at the factory, it's the whole supply chain. It's also all the logistics and the infrastructure around it. I think, what was your second part of the question?
Responsible business conduct.
Responsible business conduct.
How can you make it comfortable for them so that they don't get more fear? They do not respond out of fear. I'm sorry to put it that way.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was looking at some statistics before coming here today, and one of the statistics I was looking at was whether buyers are considering pulling back the production from different countries back to the EU. And what that statistic showed was that only 5% is considering pulling part of the production back to the EU because of these directives. But 19% is considering expanding to other countries, and about 80% is considering investing more in collaboration with their suppliers. So the fear of losing buyers because of these directives, because of responsible business conduct, is not really the case at the moment if you look at the statistics. I think also what you should look at is sustainability is really the only way forward, not only if you want to sell to the EU, but also other countries are introducing due diligence laws. And so instead of seeing it as a hindrance, I would instead see it as an investment in competitiveness. And also, if you invest in better working conditions, in better occupational safety and health, there is also plenty of research out there that suggests that you also will increase production, and thereby contributing to lowering the production costs.
Thank you. Those in the audience, please get ready, because we are left with two more panelists to end with a veteran. But please think of questions that you have, and please do not think of any question in terms of should and the larger prognosis. Let's think of very specific questions to them. because I think the intention of being here, because you have valuable time that you're sparing it to be here. I told Mustafiz that I will be coming here only to come with a succinct menu that we can eventually transport from here to wherever that matters. Otherwise, there's no point in being here. So please start thinking. They're touching many very significant points, maybe slightly broadly, but there are very important points. The second last panelist, Zia, you sit somewhere in the middle. You're maybe in the middle of the producers. Yeah, I know, not only physically. As the H&M country manager. Now, one broad question, other specific. The broad one would be, as H&M, I think the largest sourcer from Bangladesh, how do you see, just give us 1, 2, 3 things that you see are worries from the Bangladeshi manufacturers, but something that is coming from your client, meaning consumers, and where you think that these are doable. Just give 1, 2, 3 things. And possibly a very specific one, sustainable sourcing. It's easier said than done. How H&M thinks it can be made to work gainfully, particularly for the entrepreneurs?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you for asking this question, and real pleasure to be here. First of all, I think when you work in H&M, and I think most of the big retailer or those who are
what is the latest figure H&M is picking up from Bangladesh? The percentage share.
Publicly, I'm not going to mention it, sir. Thank you so much. We are one of the very big. You go to EPB, you get it in anyway, sir. Thank you. I hope you understand my limitation. Thank you. So, where I was that wherever we operate, there is a first thing we maintain, and that is law of the land. So we operate here, we are 100% bound to maintain the Bangladeshi normal law. And that is, let's talk about labor law, because we signed the ILO convention. I don't think if you go to Europe to talk about the labor law, you need to do anything more than whatever Bangladeshi labor law says. So for me, it's very simple. Okay, maybe I'm sitting a different side of the table. That's why maybe my, fellow entrepreneur says, oh, Zia is easy to talk. But you need to understand one thing also, sir. This industry is a 4-decade-old industry. I don't think we cannot talk about the minimum requirement. There is an accord time, there is a RSC time. I'm a part of the RSC as well. They had to go to the factory and just to talk about basic safety requirement. The first question comes actually, why the building safety requirement we need to talk about even today? It should come at the very beginning recipe. You go to the Bangladesh building code, everything written very clearly. So somebody didn't follow it. So the law, we have it. And the moment we follow that comply 100% where we basically sell our product. So it's very simple. So that's number one. Okay, then as we are a European company, we are legally abide by the European law. So when this European due diligence law, earlier it was the German due diligence law, then everybody adopt kind of. When it came into the picture, it immediately tells us what we can do, what we cannot do. Not necessarily we operate inside the Europe or outside the Europe. This is where the transparency came into the picture in a very broader scale. And I think this is the two area that I see our supply chain is struggling a little bit, I would say. We are much behind. I think in terms of the due diligence law that Europe has, because if I look at our supply chain, many of our suppliers are not fully aware about it. What does it mean? What are the areas they need to comply? This awareness level is a much less than what it's supposed to be. Okay, and now, if you talk about human rights and others, I will talk about, because this is primarily a GSP discussion. Okay, so if you talk about GSP plus, what does it mean? Today we are a EBA, everything but arms, that's what we are complying. So GSP plus has a couple of things. The first thing is producing, the manufacturing in a sustainable way. It immediately says that 27 ILO convention law. If you stick to my first point that, okay, follow the Bangladeshi labor law, you don't need to rethink again. So I think we have the basic recipe. We need to start from there. whether we're aware or whether we're not aware, well, that's the responsibility. Okay, BGME, it's a responsibility yourself, government as well, because you are the implementing authority. As a brands, I think for us, when we operate, well, there is a broader aspect for the country, but we go to a facility, a production unit, a factory. Well, this is where the basically deals happen. You want this product, these are the things you need to comply. So that's the relationship we maintain. Maybe the very next door factory will not comply, but that doesn't give us, it's not our leverage. Then it comes to BGMEA, then it comes to the government in a larger scale. I hope I answer.
One example you can give in terms of sustainable sourcing that you think the entrepreneurs can sort of pick up very early on so that it helps you to pacify or convince the Europe on the other side, which is doable.
Okay, sir.
Just one thing, that which is not done yet, but it's doable.
I will not talk only one way. So I will give an example. So when Mr. Raid was talking, after that you said there is some big elephant he touched. So I will talk on elephant here, sir. On it's a little bit kind of a jokes apart, I would say. I think it was around 9-10 years ago when we start talking with our suppliers that we should have worker participating committee. And look at about the word. We didn't say union because we were afraid. We cannot talk about that yet. We talk about participatory committee. What the participatory committee will do, there will be a representative of the worker and there it will be selected by the election. You trust me, from our Dhaka office, myself was on the meeting. Minimum half hour of the audience, they left the meeting room in the middle of the meeting in our own office. So from there, we come to a position today that all our suppliers that work, 100% worker participating committee is there and 100% by election. And everybody is like, there is a festival happen when the election happen. The reason why I mentioned this is a big elephant we are touching, sir. And this is a basic human rights. The moment you go to do 27, the UN convention, you go immediately there. I hope I answer you, sir.
Okay, thank you. This is the whole purpose. Let's talk about the difficult ones. No need to avoid, because I'm not looking at our friends from European Union or Denmark and saying that we are here only to do the cozy things, good things, and leave the room. Please feel free so that at the end of the day we come with some, at least one or two doable things. The last panelist, sir, I have purposefully kept you at the end so that you have the onerous way to share your mind and now listening to that. Possibly two things. I think we love the policy debate. We love policy actions because those are quite often not done with. And listening to this, what exists today, and possibly a little into future, what few policy corrections you would think, and given your vast footprint in other areas of the economy, you think are doable and can be done. And the other is that on the entrepreneur side, I purposefully tickled Ms. Abid Khan on the whole question of the incentives, because there's debate. So objectively, to your mind, what would you think that entrepreneurs can do where they can come some distance, and what on the public space, policy space, can be done? Sir.
Good evening. Ambassador Riaz Hamidullah. Thank you for the questions. My fellow panelists have already focused on a number of issues, very important. Dear audience, let me begin by registering my high optimism about the RMG sector of Bangladesh. We have crossed the quota debacle, we have crossed the Rana Plaza tragedy, and now we are facing LDC graduation. But I am very hopeful that this success story will continue. And I will now mention why I think this to be so. I think that, if we look at the RMG sector before Rana Plaza, and if we look now, I think there has been a lot of changes, positive changes in terms of compliance. And policies have mattered and policies have contributed to that. Let's see, this sector, the RMG sector, is a $750 billion global market. If you take textiles, it is $1.5 trillion. So sky is the limit. And look at this Denim Expo, 17th, Mr. Musafiruddin is organizing. Now, what a presence and what an enthusiasm we can see. So this gives me optimism. Although LDC graduation will happen in 2026, some people think that it can be deferred. I don't think so. All the three criteria, if you look at the LDC graduation thresholds, Bangladesh have crossed, even if we have some confusion and some doubts about data. Bangladesh is very well poised for the graduation in November 2026. And even if we get 3 years of extension, the day of reckoning will be there. So let's get prepared. And you have mentioned what are the policies, and you have mentioned about incentives, for example. I think that we will have to restructure the incentives. Because the challenges that are coming, for example, European Union, the GSP Plus, the carbon adjustment, border adjustment mechanism, the entrepreneurs will have to have the production practices which are environment friendly. So this will require, investment. And that's where my proposition will be that we will have to, the brands and buyers who make profit in Bangladesh, they will also have to come and help our entrepreneurs in terms of technology transfer, investing there, and in terms of the labor standards and other compliance requirements. I think that, for example, the issue of labor rights has been mentioned. It's not workers' welfare councils. You will have to give the workers their rights. It's a human right. So that can also be a selling point. So I think that from our side, for example, policies, the labor tribunals which we have there, they are undermanned, under-resourced. So these are the things that you will have to invest so that we can show that we are complying and so that we can show that we have the institutions in place for compliance. For example, Bangladesh, as you know, the knitwear industry, we have a number of platinum and other compliant industries. Why wouldn't our brands and buyers absorb some of the additional costs which are there? I think that's also a very good business proposition, because it's just not the European Union standards, it's also the Western consumers. So you see, you have three layers. One is the brands and buyers, the other is the country standards, like European standards, the other is the consumer. So if we can produce in a way which is compliant in terms of labor, in terms of environment, I think it also appeals to the consumer. Just imagine, labor costs is only about 6 to 8% of the retail costs in the Western retail shops. So I think it is good business proposition for the brands and buyers also to work with our entrepreneurs. And let's remember, all the entrepreneurs are present here. This is a new generation of entrepreneurs. They are forward-looking. They are not like, for example, the previous generation. They know that compliance is the new normal. So you shouldn't look at it as a cost addition. You should look at it as a selling point. So if Bangladesh is to translate its comparative advantages into competitive advantage, then obviously the GSP plus requirements in terms of labor, in terms of environment, in terms of governance at the enterprise level, I think that all these will be our selling point. Now, you have mentioned about the incentive structure, the fiscal incentives, the monetary incentives. Of course, after graduation, we will not be able to provide many of the incentives that we are giving now. Okay? So, because we will not be LDCs and there are many incentives, fiscal direct incentives, which we will not be able to give. But the government can come up with many policy support. For example, the health support, the education support to the workers, the housing support to the workers. If you look at China, No, China is not an LDC. China is a developing country, and the sort of incentives that they give are not the direct incentives. So I think that we will have to restructure our fiscal policies and incentives so that it is also graduation friendly, but at the same time, it also helps the entrepreneurs to be competitive, and also it helps the, the brands and buyers to source from Bangladesh. But let me also mention that earlier we have seen that there is a hypocrisy between ethical buying and ethical sourcing, and that really led to Rana Plaza. But after 2013, I think that there has been a lot of changes. The brands and buyers want to work with our entrepreneurs. But from that perspective, how do we also help our brands and buyers to remain competitive, to source from Bangladesh? So one is the fiscal policy and the monetary policy, which has to be recushioned in a way which doesn't go against the WTO rules and regulations, so that no one can take us to the WTO dispute settlement body. And then, so this is one. The other is the institutional capacity within our country, within Bangladesh. Yeah? I mentioned about the labor law, the DIFE, which looks at the safety measures. All these are our institutions which are not incapacitated enough to perform their duties. So this is also another way to sell Bangladesh as a compliant country. I think compliance can become a selling point, a branding point of Bangladesh after LDC graduation. And the third point that I will make, because I started by saying that I am optimistic, because I see that that a number of initiatives are being taken. Bangladesh, for example, is also negotiating with RCEP. So after graduation, if we go for regional various trading arrangements, that also give us preferential market access. So I think that we will also have to pursue vigorously various regional comprehensive economic partnership agreements, Bangladesh's membership in those. So that is another issue. One will also have to think that after graduation, if it is GSP plus, the rules of origin will also change. So we will also have to strengthen our backward linkages and forward linkages. So in terms of that, that is also where policies can support. I remember when in the late 1990s, there was a big debate with the World Bank. World Bank was telling that Bangladesh's competitive advantage is only in knitting and ready-made garmenting, and we were arguing that in some of the products, Bangladesh should have a competitive advantage in terms of developing the backward linkages. And now, if you look at for example, knitwear, 90% of it is, cotton up. Okay. In wovenwear also, about 40% is cotton up. So we have built our backward linkage industries with government support. So I think that policies matter. Policies matter, and the government can play a very crucial role in terms of, as I said, translating our competitive advantages into competitive advantage. Obviously, the global environment is changing a lot, and our competitors are also, coming up. I follow very closely Indian policies, and I always think, India produces cotton and everything up. Why India is far behind? But I can see the changes that they are taking in their policies. So the competitive environment will become more intense, that's for sure, and it will also coincide with LDC graduation. It will also coincide with the European new GSP scheme. The old one is continuing till 2027, but the new one will be in place after 2027. So that will also become very stringent, as Dr. Abid was mentioning. But I think that if we strategize with policies, institutional, fiscal, and monetary, I think that we can continue the story that started in the late 1970s and is still continuing now. So I am optimist from that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. You almost summarized. And I think as we are to move to the floor, please try to take the best benefit out of such a fiery panel great depth and breadth in the panel. Before going to the floor, there's something which I have in hand, and I want to summarize without telling where from I'm quoting, like Zia. I think, sir, to all of you, beyond 27, 29, the landscape that will be, it will be making the politics, society, business, and economy in tandem, in moving. If one pillar is weak, one pillar is not responding, I think we'll suffer. That is about due diligence. Please understand this. This is, I'm summarizing, but believe in me, if they're referring to due diligence, it is less of environmental due diligence that we try to always think of. It is increasingly coming to something that we often, I may say, hate, but it's about human rights. And sir, I applaud you because you said about what you said about labor rights. Labor rights is a human right. So gone are those days that we can shy away from. You actually tickled many more. That is one. So other point is that many people often confuse that Ragi guidelines or others are voluntary. These are more than compulsory. These are said voluntary, but in a way, the market is such that either you are in or you are out automatically because of market forces, because of consumers' preferences, by choices. Go to Europe, many of you visit Europe, you go to these stores and everything, you'll see how they are doing. They're checking. I give you one example, which is my favorite. They ask that, what is the water footprint of this shirt? What is the source of water? We don't think of that. I go to Australia and I get very upset that no one, I'm sorry, many of your friends, they pay least possible attention. Sir, you are so right. Water table is falling. Thousands of the farmers are in great disarray. They don't know what to do. Maybe they don't have the ability to rebel, but consumers are asking, give me the water footprint of a shirt. Then how do you do? You may say that I have the finest of the factory, but why am I not getting it from the brands or the consumers? But this is the story. The other would be that I think at the end, what will come in the middle will be liberty, inclusion, and transparency. These three things, just to summarize in understandable ways: liberty, inclusion, transparency. I come to the floor with one example. One of the leading Sri Lankan entrepreneur who has billions of dollars of $1 billion over turnout. I walked into his living room. I saw that he was negotiating with Victoria's Secret. I think some of you can guess. And I asked him, he's one of the leading. I asked him, what do you negotiate? He said, I don't negotiate price. What do you negotiate? I negotiate values. I said, what do you do? He said, today I have blockchain. I completely open up my ledger. And they look at every possible thing. So I said that, if you are coming here to Sri Lanka, to my factory to pick up this thing, yes, I'm a high cost producer, but then I have values to say. And in this place, I had a fantastic conversation with someone called Nicholas Profte. Nicholas was the brand holder for Nicholas from where not Marxist, Nicholas PVH. And we engaged, and he said that, look, if I'm picking up a pair of jeans from Bangladesh, I'm concerned about the price, but I'm more concerned, tell me what are the stories that you have to tell. So all that I'm asking in terms of compliance and everything, I think it's the stories and values. Values is something missing. So what you said, I would put somewhere middle. Labor rights is also a value proposition. And look at Sri Lanka, a country where all the entrepreneurs, manufacturers, they got together for a tiny 2.5-page document. It's called Garments Without Guilt. Aparad bodh chhara amra utpadan kori. Aparad bodh chhara. How do I define that? It is that kind of value proposition we need to have, not in isolation, not you, two, three, one, two individuals, as an industry, as a collective. On that note, let me come to the floor. It's your time. Omar, we'll come to you later. You're too knowledgeable for this crowd.
Thank you, sir. This is Monwar, and I'm the head of sustainability at Team Group. So my question is, apart from the LDC graduation and associated turmoil that are coming up across the countries like Bangladesh, in Bangladesh, we do have a bunch of regulatory changes, for instance, HREDD, EU CSDDD, and also ESRS, CSRD, DPP, and CABM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So all these things given us a direction that we have to comply with so many things. And when we do business, it's pretty much like a spider web whereby we have a very complex relationship across the value chain. So as you're talking about value, so I use the term value chain. So across the value chain, we know our roles and everything. So standing on this point, my question to the representative of Bangladesh government is, how do you see the possibility of negotiating, if not everything, especially the broader carbon adjustment mechanism sort of thing, because it directly compel the consumers to give, compel the exporters to give some carbon taxes. That's one point. Another point is to the European counterpart. Mr. Kokok is here. My question is to Mr. Kokok is, how do you see that Bangladesh RMG industry's readiness to comply this complex regulatory mechanism that are imposing on us on top of LDC? Thank you. I hope my questions are clear.
We'll take 2-3 questions together and then come to the floor.
Hello, I'm Syed Mohammad Tamer. I am the Managing Director of Pacific Knit Division. So my question is, in order for GSP and LEDC transition, we are speaking a lot regarding the policies and regarding the transition itself. However, what I want to ask is, what is the roadmap or what is the infrastructural support system in order to shape this transition? What I mean is the logistical part, the banking sectors. What is the government's roadmap towards this for the GSP and the LDC transition? Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions regarding the future of the RMG sector. We all know that fast fashion is increasingly the core of the business, and we tend to cater to that segment of the market. And as we know, the margins are quite slim in that segment, and most of our players, many entrepreneurs are complaining that their margins are getting squeezed by the year. And we know that compliance in general is an expensive proposition. So my question is, how do we find a way to diversify within this sector? What would be the way forward in order to move towards more high value products, which would enable us to remain compliant while making more money, which would allow us to reinvest? That is the first question. The second question is, apart from the GSP or LDC graduation, we also need to adhere to certain compliance standards, particularly for EU Green Deals, and that requires us to go for a circular business model. While compliance at the factory level is easier because it's easier to put in equipments, make investments, start green factories, but what would be the system level strategy for becoming more circular as a sector? Thank you.
Anyone else? Or let's turn to this side. Edwin, would you start?
Yes, thank you. I'm audible? Yes. So, first of all, in reply to your questions, but also echoing what has been said, there are the buyers that want something, and actually, if I hear from my friends in the Netherlands, I'm from the Netherlands, that more and more, if they have interviews with candidates, one of the questions candidates ask, what are you doing as company to mitigate climate change or to reduce environmental impacts? It's really one of the things that young people ask when they look for jobs. So they want to work for green, ambitious companies. That brings me to the next point. It's the buyers. There are several European buyers that are really sincerely keen on having products where the labor rights are met and where environmental standards are met, and that provide a contribution to climate change. Then we have the legislation. So the European legislation is built on this request from what the buyers want. And for the EU, as I said, we are really with Bangladesh, with the reform ambitions of your government to support them in meeting this different legislation, the Due Diligence Directive, the Eco Design Directive, and also to support with the GSP Plus transition. And we are doing so inter alia through the Team Europe initiative on decent work, which is co-chaired by Denmark, Netherlands, and Sweden. And it says altogether they have a portfolio of 680 million euros divided over 47 programs to support with meeting labor rights. And we have another Team Europe initiative on the green energy transition, having a portfolio of together 1.3 billion. And this is also replying to your earlier question. We try to support not only the sector through our SRIUP project, which provide loans and grants to individual factories, but we also try to support Bangladesh with the green energy transition, with increasing the share of renewable energy. We have a 350 million euros loan of the European Investment Bank, which needs to be complemented with another 350 million from other co-financers, ADB, World Bank, but also the European investors, AFD, KfW, European, Danida. So also in the area of the green energy transition, we want to contribute to increasing the renewable energy share in the energy mix, but also to strengthen the grid, because for the sector to electrify, you need a more trustworthy, more stable grid. You cannot afford power cuts in the sector, and that's why you're still using fossil fuels. So I stop here.
Both to Dr. Mustafi, the two real doctors, sir. If I may go to first to Dr. Mustafi's in terms of logistics, that is inherent to that. We now have a logistic policy, national logistic policy.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, if you reflect how that logistic policy which we have adopted in place, how can we make it to work to the benefit of the industry? Because there are a lot of logistic rigidness.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Obviously, as I was mentioning, if we really try, if we want to make our products competitive, I think its lead time, its productivity, its cost, but also logistics is so important. And I'm very happy that Bangladesh has formulated this policy. Paperless trade and other initiatives are being taken. Trade facilitation has become very important, and logistics is very much related to that. If I take LDC graduation, because of our membership in the WTO, we will have to comply with the WTO trade facilitation agreement. Trade facilitation agreement is customs facilitation, it is export facilitation, it is import facilitation. So I think that it is just not a part of our competitiveness, but also it's part of our WTO compliance. So I think that the next challenge will be in terms of implementing the logistics policy that we have adopted. There was a study by the National Bureau of Revenue which said that in terms of the turnaround time at the port, in terms of the customs clearance, etc., our position is really at the bottom. So I think that with that type of performance, we will not be able to remain competitive, even if at the enterprise level we are competitive. So you are competitive when the buyers buy your product and sell at their markets. So from the enterprise level to the market level, that's where the logistics comes. So I think that logistics policy in compliance with the WTO obligations in terms of the trade facilitation agreement, which as an LDC we didn't take a lot of obligations in terms of that. So
Sir,
that will be very important.
May I have a humble request to you beyond this conversation? Since you are very closely involved on the logistic policy framing earlier this part, possibly beyond this conversation, if you think in terms of making one or two of the policies to really bring to the last mile beyond to this evening, that is a request that I will personally make to you and leave it to you.
No, sure. I think that, for example, but let me be very frank, in terms of cross-country comparison with regard to customs clearance, etc., and we are, making a lot of technological changes over there, I think it is improving. But there are also a lot of things that we will have to do in the logistics policy. It has been spelled out, and obviously, investments will have to be made.
Sir, when you are having the coffee, One of the persons from the room told me it takes around 11 days to get the sample and the first port in, which to my mind, with simple application of technology, should be reduced to 48 hours, 2 days. So how can we really bridge between this 11 days to 2 days equation, sir?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that with digitalization, which
Sir,
can...
why is it not happening, sir? That is the question.
No, I think that it will happen because number one, there is now a big change in Bangladesh, and the government really, wants to facilitate. I, as a member of the White Paper Committee, we are also providing a lot of, and we have one section on export diversification. I think when we talk about export diversification, intra-RMG diversification is a major opportunity for us. As you was mentioning, we are concentrating only on a few items, but this is a huge market. China is first with 31%. We are second with only 7%. So there are a lot of opportunities to reduce the costs and be competitive. And the government is formulating policies in terms of investing in those areas where this type of, you very rightly mentioned. But the point that I was mentioning is that it's just not remaining competitive, it is also WTO, compliance. As a member of the WTO, the trade facilitation agreement Bangladesh has signed and ratified. So with regard to that also, after graduation, when we will not be an LDC, many of the obligations we will have to comply with, otherwise we will be taken to the WTO dispute settlement body. So obviously we are aware of that, and the necessary investments hopefully will be made. Thank you.
Friends in the room, please, যারা এখানে শুনতেছেন, এটা আরেকটা বিরাট মিসিং পাজল. We hardly understand what is the TFA, Trade Facilitation Agreement, which was signed I think 2 years back, sir. But this is part of the another thing which was actually we have not referred to. Abid bhai, if Dr. Abid Khan, please.
Just I want to mention what are the plan we have. The first one, that regarding that we have actually heard from the
Dr. Abid Khan also works in the LDC graduation strategy team.
Yeah. So we heard that if we actually develop the custom procedure, the competitiveness will increase by 5% at least. That is the apprehension of the private sector. So the Bangladeshi custom is developing a single window, and a single window will be operationalized by June 2026. That is our actually expectation. If it is in a single window is open, then the time of clearance will reduce substantially. That is one point. Second point, we have actually implemented the logistic, actually promoted logistic policy. So that we thought about it, how to do it. That whether we should develop a separate logistic policy authority or not, logistic authority. But we actually found that many sectors, many entities are involved in the logistic policy. So we just develop the policy, and we'll actually initiate a project to implement those. That one thing.
Abid bhai will come back.
The second one, yeah.
Okay.
The second one is skill development. So we are going to have a study how to develop a plan for skill development. And we have actually, the next one is that we have formulated a tariff policy so that that custom procedure become easy. So that is the idea of a tariff policy. So we have a plan. And then last one actually, we are actually formulating a smooth transition strategy. So we hope that by the end of this year, this will be adopted by the government, and then we will take many action and then we expect also that our development partner will support to implement the smooth transition strategy.
Okay, I have a request coming from this round table or whatever you say, that while you're working at the ERD on that LDC graduation strategy, which is a larger scheme of things, would you consider having a conversation, open conversation, town hall with the manufacturers, not only RMG, but also leather, shipbuilding, or maybe, sir, let's have a town hall. Please hear them out. Also agriculture. Someone said something very prophetic in this room. That is not happening. So I'm sure you'd agree with me. If you have the brilliant strategy, but that doesn't have the audience connect with them, but it's there, I think that will be out of place. I'm just making this, and I'm sure that we can work on that. Anything from the manufacturers, Mr. Rai Chaudhary, you want to add? Because someone said that your margin is getting slimmer. Do you agree?
Margin is always getting slimmer. And what Sadat Bhai said in the beginning, that costs are really increasing, cost of energy, cost of transport, everything. But in the end,
But then, if I, sorry for my
Ji, ji, ji.
apologies. I mean, then is it that you are unable to convince your customers, like Zia sitting next to you, or is he not listening or behaving right? Sorry, Zia.
it's a free market actually. It's a free market, and how I remain competitive, it depends on me. I can keep complaining, but at the end of the day, it depends on my capacity and capability, whether I am ready or not. There was a question from the audience. I don't see. I think Bhai is sitting over there. He asked about high-end brands, how we can remain competitive, how we can attract these buyers. So before joining the business, almost a decade ago, I used to complain, hey, how come we are producing for only volume buyers? I used to I didn't really understand. And I used to think, is my father not capable of producing for XYZ designer brands, all over the world? But in fact, what is more important is, are you ready? Is your factory ready? Are you ready to handle those buyers or not? Today we are performing, alhamdulillah, for designer brands. But on the other hand, just recently, I was really upset to deny a few designer brands as well myself. Some brands who have retail price of $400 for a shirt. It seems really attractive, maybe, but at the end of the day, the sampling requirements, the other requirements, are our factories ready or not? That is actually a big question. And at the end of the day, are we ready to perform those or not? But in fact, Bangladesh, we can see that a major shift is coming. Orders are coming. And I think that is a very big opportunity, not for all of us. It is something to be proud of, because at the end of the day, buyers are perceiving Bangladesh as a major hub, and positively. In fact, that is the shift we are seeing. Otherwise, manufacturers like us, we could only dream before to access these kind of offices, but rather they are visiting our doors now. So
Okay.
I think the future is endless.
That's a very interesting point. Here in the room, I think Shubhankar is there. Shubhankar from Pratham Alo. Let me pick up on the last point of his. I think there was a point which is a fair point, that sometimes the press and media, you always look for sensationalization of not things going right. But here is someone who comes with ethics, value, transparency, and confidence. Why do you not pick up his story or his storyline? If Shubhankar has left, if someone can grab him, I think that is a question that we can keep pending, but I think that would be fair to hear from someone like Pratham Alo. Anyone from the room? There are two entrepreneurs I can see in the room, Ms. Nafisuddollah.
Hi, I'm Nafis. I will not talk about myself, but I will
Would you tell where are you from, sir?
My company name is Impress Newtex. I'm a director there. So I want to talk about the general manufacturer. Okay. So Raid is like top 5. So he can approach a lot of brands and other things. But I'll talk about few things that a lot of brands has imposed a lot of rules only for Bangladesh. Only for Bangladesh. Like US customers, they saying that, okay, you have to open up the roof for 30% or 40% roof. You have to open up because there was a fire in 2009. Then Rana Plaza came up, and a lot of brands says that I will not work in the shared building. So these are the rules only for Bangladesh. But since Rana Plaza and Garib fire or Tarzin fire, we came up a long way. But those specific rules still exist. And the brands are not actually looking at those things that, okay, I will work in the shared building if the building is safe. So we are the safest manufacturer in the world now. Nobody can beat us. That's for sure. And also, like, roof has to be open. We don't go up now. We are always going down. Our target at all the workers, if it is like 10,000, 5,000 or 1,000 workers, they have to come down. That is the rule. So still those rules are there for only for Bangladesh, and a lot of people cannot approach those customers because of these rules. So,
Sir,
there any, yeah.
in the interest of time, we have picked up your point.
Yeah.
Can I connect this question to, this observation to our Danish friend or Zia, that this is interesting. We hear sometime that there are Bangladesh-specific sourcing rule. Is this correct or not? Anyone?
All right, if I take there is no. Thank you so much, by the way. At least for us, we don't have any country-specific rules and regulation. At least that I can vouch. But I think we can't just say that there was a time Rana Plaza happened. If you take the BGME list of suppliers, how many of them Accord or RSC actually covered? You are one of the director of the RSC board, me too as well. So we fight a lot over there. We have a lot of potentiality, a long tail of the list, which is not part of it. So I think it's a reputational crisis. Maybe some buyer asks, at least that I don't know. I don't know the name also. I'm not going for a debate here. If you ask any buyer should do it, the answer is no. But we need to understand from where it came. It's a trust. It's a trust.
But then the fiery question, how long do we suffer from the enigma of Rana Plaza, 13 years on? It's there. And let's be very straight, Zia, it's not at all about you. In Europe and places, people profit out of sort of branding Bangladesh like that, for whatever reason there. And that's another sad part. But question and issue is that can economics help us do away with it? That's an open question, frankly. But people come and say, oh, I pity you, I'm sorry about it. But it's not there. That's why I consciously say some people profit from that branding.
I fully agree with that.
No, it's not a question of agreeing, but question would be that coordinated branding or whatever what creative thing can really help us get out of this mess? Sir. Maybe Professor Mustafiz has something in mind.
Yeah, of course, I will give it to sir, but I can tell you, sir, nobody else will help us if I don't help ourselves. Branding Bangladesh, others will not do. It is us, Bangladeshi, and I'm a proud Bangladeshi. We need to do it first. The other brands will do only if they have a link here. It's easy to say, I'm not doing a business here, go somewhere else. I will stop it here, sir.
Can we come to Edwin, sir, first? Edwin, from European Union. Is he?
A very short answer. I think it's all about possible negative media attention, which was there at the time. And I think now you have done really an awful lot in the area of labor rights and also environmental standards. And risks to have new, for example, I am not only worried about your carbon trajectory, but also the pollution of your rivers, perhaps not because of the RMG sector, but pollution in general is another issue that media at some point might turn at. So I think whatever Bangladesh can do to perform better and greener than other countries, that will get you out of that situation. And I think you are already performing better and greener in several areas than other countries. Every time when we bring foreign visitors to Bangladesh, we show them your factories, and they're always impressed by the standards here, the very high technological and environmental standard in your country. But it's by performing, by strengthening your performance. I think, as has been said several times, this is a business opportunity. So it's, yeah.
No, I think that, after Rana Plaza, already we have crossed 11 years. And what we have found is that the brands and buyers did not go away from Bangladesh. They worked with us, Accord Alliance. They could have done so, not in 1 year perhaps, because we are such large suppliers, but in 5 years perhaps gradually they could have left, but they worked with Bangladesh. And I think that they know where from we started and where we have come to. So it's, I think, very right that our friend from the audience mentioned that we are now one of the best in terms of fire safety and structural safety and electricity safety, which the Accord and Alliance really looked into. So I think that that is one area that we should remember, that the brands and buyers work with us and they are with us, and that's why the new challenges that are coming tomorrow and day after tomorrow, GSP Plus, I think that the brands and buyers also have a responsibility to work with our entrepreneurs, and also in terms of the prices that are there. Of course, productivity is one area that we'll have to work on, but I think that the next challenge for the brands and buyers will also be to readjust their prices. But with regard to the branding, it's also a business strategy of some of our competitors, and that will be there. And the best answer is to be ready with our own answers, which is that we are a compliant country, we are a compliant enterprise. So that's the way to go forward.
Next round of questions from the floor. একটু তাড়াতাড়ি করেন ভাই।
Assalamu alaikum. I'm a Mominul Islam, working as a merchandise lead in Auto International. My question to the government representative: what you are thinking about the man-made fiber-based product when the LDC graduation time will come? Because this is the things we have very less business, and if we can highlight these things, we can get huge business. This is my personal opinion. And the second question is to Mr. Zia. Basically, our country's factory, they have showing the values, but the bigger brands, they are paying for the same style in Africa more and less in Bangladesh. Do you know, just need some advice how I can solve these problems, how we can get more price in Bangladesh as well? Thank you.
Pichone. Please tell who you are.
Thank you for giving me the floor. I am Malik Affan Al Hassan, and my question is to the policy makers and the policy holders regarding the foreign direct investments in Bangladesh, the policies that were there during the previous government, and the policies that's being made the changes that's being made. What are the outlines and the checklists that the policies those are being worked on right now? Thank you.
Give us one example what you are meaning by policy shift or policy commitments.
The flexibilities in terms of getting the foreign direct investments in our country, and the hurdles, for instance, the dollar bonds previously.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
From many of our friends, some countries are saying that why don't you open up investment in under different HS code in RMG sector. For example, where you are representing, would your company be ready for that? Because that can bring technology or innovation, for example. This is also a question. So we should not only think from our point of view, we should also possibly think of others. Okay, let's hold on. One more question. I think there is ILO representative somewhere in the room. What would be your take on the, I have some relations with ILO, so in terms of 2 labor action plan, the US has 11-point action plan, European Union has its own. Basically, these are converging to the discussions in Geneva. Not simply Geneva, Brussels, Washington are converging. So please do not go into the shoot and others. Tell us one or two specific things that you think ILO thinks that can be done in the short while.
Yeah, sure. I think it's really timely manner, because around this time, Bangladesh government is in Geneva for governing body meeting, and they have to report about the progress of Bangladesh in addressing Article 26 complaint. So there's a complaint inside the ILO supervisory mechanism about the Bangladesh labor law.
Can you tell a little bit about what is the Article 6 complaint?
Okay, Article 26 complaint is a complaint from the worker side inside the ILO mechanism. So the workers' representative complains against Bangladesh labor law. And this is happening maybe 5 years ago. And this week, there's a governing body meeting where the government of Bangladesh has to report what are the progress of this. And one particular mention, if I can mention, is the EPZ labor law. There is an EPZ labor law that has to be reformed. I think that's, so if I can link from that, what is Bangladesh needs to work on is first about the labor law reform, especially in the EPZ. And then second one is about how the dispute resolution in the country is being addressed, because I think it's very important as well for you. When there is a HRDD in Europe, you don't want any complaints in Europe. You want the complaints to be addressed inside the system, in the company. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is very significant, and again, as I said, I think we need to confront these uncomfortable questions because these are reality, part of reality. We like it or not. Anyone else? একবার মাইক্রোফোন একটু তাড়াতাড়ি হাঁটেন ভাই। Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Shaukat Iqbal from Bangladesh Textile Journal. I have a basic questions. I just want to understand this LDC graduation in 2027 supposed to be. This LDC graduation, when a country, I just learned that when a country has the capacity or it's in a position, their development is in such a position that they don't need support from international community or international sources.
Sir, I'll slightly interject. I think in the interest of time, this is not, it's not an idealistic or objective question. This is a fact of reality. So if you kindly come to your question, it's not a question of agreeing or disagreeing. It's there.
Okay.
So
basically, my question is, if it is happening by 2027, do you really think that Bangladesh is completely ready for the graduations?
So Mustafi's answered that. As I said, it's not a question of our liking or non-liking, not agreeing or disagreeing. It's been agreed. And the likelihood of getting it otherwise is almost, sir, if I may say, nil. CPD in New York is about that. So, but your point is taken, because what you are saying is that there's certain nervousness, worry, etc. Practically, yes. For me, tomorrow going to the office is a nervous act, sir. Also confronting my wife every time. So I think let's accept it. It's not a question. You have to face it. Sorry.
Yes, and one more thing I would like to know, that when they calculate the average, GNI per capita, do they have any like mechanism that, for example...
Sorry for cutting you. These are established methodology. After this conversation, get hold of Dr. Abid Khan.
All right, thank you.
Next. That means that you're really satisfied or content and you think that it's money's worth for being here. I'm a bit surprised. Our Danish colleague, please.
What would you like me to respond to?
No, I think, what's your general take? I think there are a couple of elements which I would consider that are of interest to you as well. Because Denmark is one of the countries from the Nordic, particularly, who understands Bangladesh, who is a champion of sustainability, particularly sustainable practices. I think 2013, your minister was here in Dhaka in summer, and you're one of the first. And it's also in circularity. So no one has spoken. I'm very surprised. I'm disappointed with the entrepreneurs. None of you have touched circularity. To me, or from the Europeans or the demand side, they're trying to tease us that circularity could be an opportunity. But we think of many things. We talk about policy shift. As I said, I don't like this should, would, or could business. But can we, for example, and this is an open question to you, but also others, there's something, can carbonization or circularity transition help us leapfrog some of the conversation? Can we think of this an opportunity? And for you and you particularly, how can you really make it work for individual entrepreneurs, but also as industry, as a Bangladesh RMG? So I'm putting a question to you, not putting you on spot.
That's okay. I will answer. My answer is very, very brief. I think one of the things we should look at here is, you mentioned the youth sector. And that's mainly an informal sector. And if we want to really start using all that waste and get it back into the production, then it has to be formalized. And that's a task for the government in consultation with both workers and the industry. And we are happy to do what we can to support the policy formulation. And we have the expertise in the government.
That's a very interesting thing. On that note, if I probe Professor Mustafi, is because
I wanted to answer the other questions.
Yes, sir. But on that as well, I think someone can tell me waste from apparel and textile industry comes to something around 10 to 15%, if I'm not wrong. And this is left completely in an informal space. Is this a lack of regulation, policy, incentives, or intention not getting it organized so that it becomes more of an opportunity?
Just very briefly, and my answer is going to disappoint you a little bit because, again, I'm just referring to what projects we are doing.
Short of your wife, you can disappoint anyone.
Okay, so we have a 20 million euros global project it's called Switch Circular, which focus on contributing to circular economy in countries all over the world. It's financed by EU and Finland. And in Bangladesh, we will have two pilot projects in the area of plastic recycling in the RMG sector, together with H&M and bestsellers. And the same project is implemented by UNIDO, also aims at helping the government with formulating a circular economy policy. And indeed, the informal sector around waste is one of the bottlenecks that needs to be addressed. So I don't have an answer on the question, but we are working on it.
No, Edwin, that's a fantastic thing, sir. Also looking at you, because what they're doing, that is working with some. My question, looking at Riyad Chaudhary and Mr. Sohail Sadat, why is it that entrepreneurs your friends, they're not very enthused about it? Do they not agree or see that this could be an opportunity, game-changing opportunity? It's a question, if you feel comfortable, then you respond. Solvay.
Thank you very much. Actually, circular economy is like well spoken, and today we I think rightly addressed. And it is not formalized yet. We are in the discussion. It's just at the beginning. We have ample of opportunity to take it to the next level. And if we see, yes, regulation problem is there, local handling problem is there, and taking it to the next level for recycle it. We don't have many of the projects just beginning. So maybe in the long run, we see that if we can take it back and if we can send it to the recycle project, if you can have many of the projects, then I think there is an ample of opportunity we can look forward to. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I think that's a business opportunity. I fully agree. With regard to LDC graduation, just in one sentence, you see, inclusion is voluntary, but graduation is mandatory. So if you have graduated 2 out of the 3 threshold criteria, you are out. Unless the Bangladesh government decides to, write to the CDP, Committee for Development Policy of the UN, ESCAP, and then argue that we don't want to graduate because of this reason. I don't think that's going to happen. The second point was intra-RMG diversification, and man-made fiber was mentioned. I think that's the next big frontier. Bangladesh export, 25% of the export is man-made fiber. The 75% is cotton. If you look at the global market, it is reverse. 75% is man-made and 25% is cotton. And that part is increasing. So I think the next great frontier for Bangladesh RMG will be there. So our entrepreneurs, our investors, our policymakers, the restructuring of the incentives, will have to keep that in mind. The third point was about FDI. I think that even a few years back, in the domestic tariff area, not in the EPZs, FDI in RMG was discouraged. It was discouraged by our own entrepreneurs. But if I connect the second question with the third question, I think that FDI is what will bring you, the intra-RMG diversification, going up the fashion and value chain. So that's the opportunity.
Technology.
Yeah, technology transfer and the challenges that we are talking with regard to the LDC graduation. So I think that the entrepreneurs, our Bangladeshi entrepreneurs, should take a more enlightened view with regard to attracting FDI in the domestic tariff area in the RMG sector. Thank you.
Just regarding the upscaling the RMG sector, the man-made fiber. Actually, we conducted a study. We have conducted a study, and there is an action plan how to develop the man-made fiber sector. But interestingly, we had a meeting on the how to implement the action plan, and we actually invited all the private sector from the RMG sector. But nobody came. Only the from the association secretary came. And we could not discuss that one. That's that's a problem. But we had a very good study on that, and what to do. But no entrepreneur came. No entrepreneur come. From the BGMA, one of the secretary came. That was the
Mr.
problem.
Sohel Sadat said that after this he is going to
that was actually a big problem for us. That we need support from the private sector, especially from the entrepreneur, how to implement those actions. If we don't do that, then that we cannot move forward. That's a problem we are facing. Thank you.
Any last word, particularly from the entrepreneurs, two entrepreneurs? You want to add something? If not, feel free. Okay.
Especially like GSP Plus, the requirement is 40% value addition. That's where like knitwear is okay for Bangladesh, but I myself see a big challenge. Apart from man-made fiber, new HS code we are looking forward to, but existing HS code we are going to face problem if it is 40% value addition, because still we have big challenge in denim area, innovation, newness, and non-denim area is still we don't have big capacity. So I think we have to look forward to it, like how we are going to achieve, because fabric itself is more than 50% value addition. If requirement is 40%, if we import something from China or outside Bangladesh, then we are going to lose it. We will be losing our competitiveness. Today, sitting in this situation, USA, we are not shipping much because of the tariffs, because of the duties and taxes. It is 18% to 32%. Because like if we are losing that competitive edge, then our export is going to impact and effect. That is why my actually very specific points. Thank you very much.
I can see now the energy is coming.
Just one point with regard to the rules of origin. For the GSP Plus, it will not be in percentage of value addition, but it will be in stages. So you will have to comply with two-stage production. So that is important to make that distinction between stages of production and the value addition. Thank you.
This is a very important point, and I'm very happy that through your question or observation, this has got clarified, because quite often it doesn't come to our mind or attention too. If there are no other question, I think one last question. I think someone microphone যদি একটু দ্রুত একটু আসেন ওনার কাছে, ভাই মাইক্রোফোনটা একটু দ্রুত নিয়ে হাঁটেন না।
Good evening. I'm Afizur Rahman Khan from Magdride Second Limited, mold prevention partner to the industry. I have a question to Mr. Rayat Chaudhary. He was talking about that factory is not yet ready to shift from basic to designer product. So what are the lackings in the factory? Are the workers not ready, or there are skill gaps? And if there are skill gaps in the industry, that what are the initiatives from the entrepreneur to match, fulfill those skill gaps? And I have another question to Professor Mustafiz, that the recent interest rate hike, how it's going to impact. We can, see, hear from the entrepreneurs that some of them are, pushing back their investment, or, plan for opening new plants or expansion plan. How it's going to impact the industry that's now currently 16-17% investment interest rate is
Okay, we got it.
certainly going to be in effect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One very last question from anyone, if there is. এই যে সামনে সামনে সামনে।
Good evening, everyone. This is Manish from Noise Jeans. So
where are you from?
Noise Jeans.
Yes.
So my question is related with the discussions only. For the polyester, So you said that what is required for Bangladesh to do to increase the polyester exports. As per my study and analysis, we need only three things for polyester. Number one, the biggest problem in Bangladesh is we have a very high import duty on polyester chips, raw material, PT and MEG. Because of this, you can't make the polyester raw material in Bangladesh, even for export. This is the biggest problem. You can never do it. And number two, the biggest problem in the biggest requirement in polyester is another thing is point number two is in polyester is all about the power. Energy cost is very high. And third is initial investment is also very high. So the interest, the electricity, and the bigger number one is the import duty on PT and MEG. If you reduce, polyester is the biggest future for the growth in Bangladesh, because at this moment everything is dominated by China and part from India in the polyester.
Thank you very much. A very pertinent observation.
And just to tell you about your circularity, our all 100% production goes with 25% waste default, and which we are next year we are targeting to go up to 50%. So whatever we produce, all 50% waste in it.
Then my question to you,
Yes.
rather going back,
Yes.
when you are opting for such circularity,
Yeah.
is it paying you off in terms of the brands or the buyers? Because that is also a common question. Because
No, our concept is a little different. Our concept is we are working on a process of changing the way of working. So it should not be, so whatever we are doing is all cost neutral. So whatever process we do, whatever innovation we do is all about cost neutral. Why should someone pay? My thing is very simple. Why we can't do it without adding on the cost? So we got this innovation technologies where we are not adding any cost on it. And soon we will be replicating in other places too.
it sounds like more it's also matter of determination and attitude. I don't want to qualify. But any last round of take from anyone in the panel, please feel free. Entrepreneurs, Zia, H&M.
Well, somebody asked actually the questions and mentioned our name, that he has a question regarding the very famous one, the prices. And I didn't wanted to avoid that, so I thought that maybe I talk. To go there, and you will see the connection what Mr. Manish also says here. First of all, it's an open economy. We are, after 50 years of independence, we are saying that we are very happy because we are very proud that we won the LDC graduation. So last 50 years, the way it went, the next 5 years will not be the same. The reason why I mention it, the competition is huge and nobody will increase the price. That's very normal. Is the offer needs to be, is the value needs to be offered so that you get the better price basically. Okay, now if I go a little bit deeper. He mentioned, Mr. Manish mentioned that whatever he produced, 25% is a waste. That's 1/4 of the whole value. In our supply chain, there is a lot of suppliers, I would say, and I mentioned suppliers with all regards, very well regarded suppliers, both of you, and sitting here as well. There are suppliers who have a waste of 36% from a cotton to the transition to the fabric to the product itself. Now question is, will a buyer pay for it? Why? First you call it. Okay, I personally work in Indonesia for 4 years roughly. And I used to go to a factory called Kahatex. So they produce garments, same as us, who buy a lot of cotton. And then a lot of waste come from there like this. Either you agree to 25, 36, it's a very subjective. They immediately, with the waste, they go for towel producing. They work with H&M, they work with IKEA as well, I'm talking about. Okay, with the towel factory, whatever waste come, they make soft toys. It's a series of the production, and it goes somewhere around 1 to 0% waste at the end of the value chain. Okay, the reason I'm saying, and that's why even though Indonesia minimum wage is high, I'm going another direction now to the waste, and this is where I'm going to answer the question that has been asked. Is still Indonesia, that Kahatex factory's price is competitive than Bangladesh factories, because he going to that model. So no, will buyer pay to Kahatex if he is sitting same idle probably 20 years before he used to do business? He needs to evolve himself. He needs to find a way to create a value within himself. He decided to do the transaction 4 times. He buy the cotton, let's say, he make a fabric. So let's say it can be one seller and a buyer. And from fabric, he make a garments. And again, he is a seller and a buyer. And then a waist to the towel, towel to the there. It's a transaction, double, triple, he's doing it. In a GSP Plus, I think it's only SAR mentioned once that you need to do the double transactions because that's one of the criteria. If you do that, there is a zero, the trade benefit, the zero tariff. Thank you, sir, for correcting me there. If you don't do it, it's still the 12.5% something there. So these are the things we need to do it to be in the competitive. Now, if I talk about let's talk another low-hanging opportunities, efficiency. We talk a lot here about to Sri Lanka. Any given day, the supplier mentioned, you didn't mention the name, I know the supplier. You go there, the average efficiency is 75% plus. Okay, we claim that we work with some of the best suppliers in Bangladesh, and we do. And we are very proud about it, I can say. Average efficiency is 50 to 55. There are some of them are 60 as well. I will not argue that there are some. There are some of them even 62. But those are outlier for probably out of 1,000. And now question is, when is the buyer coming, why he will pay for inefficiency? And you can say you should go for is it ethical buying? And this is where I'm coming the discussion. A buyer cannot decide how much he will pay. The reason why, because the minimum wages is the country's responsibility. So when the government decides this is my minimum wage, all buyers supposed to pay there. That become a law of the land. So let's say when a brand like us buy from Turkey, even if it is a t-shirt, because that's a nearshoring, we have to pay higher because the wages is high. Is the implementation done by them? So it is us who needs to decide what to do and how do you do it. No brand will come and pay higher. The reason why I'm saying, sir, when I'm a manufacturer, I work in a factory also. I'm a buyer there also. I buy cotton, I buy yarn, I buy, let's say, button, I buy chemical. Do I pay higher to those suppliers? Because he's a Chinese supplier, maybe Indian supplier, maybe the German supplier. Do I ever gonna pay higher? No. Then why do you expect somebody else will pay me higher? So it's an attitude change. The last 50 years, the way it went, it cannot go the same next 5 years even. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zia. Towards the end, Zia is firing up, looks like. So you want to say something, sir? Okay. Thank you very much for everyone in the room for staying on. I can see that, yes, possibly with some degree of seriousness, we are hanging on for almost 2 hours. And I can also tell you that 1,000 plus people are still connected on YouTube and other social. They're listening, making many comments. We didn't have the opportunity to go into that. You referred to, sir, branding and advocacy. On that note, let me draw a closure to the event or this conversation on flashing something that was attempted, I think, last fall in Europe.
Welcome to the best of Bangladesh
in Europe.
I have many more things to offer to this industry and my country, Bangladesh.
The Netherlands is honored to have been a long-standing partner of Bangladesh.
Best of Bangladesh is not an event, it's a process.
Bangladesh has emerged as the fastest growing economy in the world.
It's a great initiative, it's very good organized, great location, so that also gives a good atmosphere, so well done.
I see a number of people's new faces, which is quite interesting for us as an exhibitor to connect the dots.
Being at this event really makes me feel part of Bangladesh.
Branding an industry or nation, just one line, requires a lot of imagination, appetite to take risks, and resolve. It's not simply about individuals, it's about industry. And I'm making this underline industry. I think the industry from this room, we should say that industry as a whole need to really make a step forward. Thank you very much, sir. And would you kindly step forward for a picture that I've been told?